So now that we have a better idea of what critical race theory is, let's figure out what are some questions that critical race theory seeks to answer. Number one, why is it that racial inequality endures and persists even decades after laws have been passed to serve all? So Brown versus Board of Education passed. Again, as soon as it passed, it's not like Black people were welcomed with open arms into white schools. No, let's look at Ruby Bridges. Let's look at how being able to bus students, the school busing, and how to integrate schools. And yet, as we integrated schools, we lost all of our Black teachers in the process. So, thinking about how these racial inequalities persist, and then why is racism still enduring? And how do we truly abolish it? Some think, let's just not talk about it and it will go away. La, 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 la. But then you actually have to wonder, is that even going to, what you resist persists? So, how can we really understand it and get to a place where we can collectively abolish it? So, critical race theory, it emerged in the 70s, and it's actually a response to critical legal studies. So, this came from law, the world of law. That's why I think it's ironic how in education we're having these conversations when critical race theory came about in the law domains, which argued that law was not objective or apolitical. The way to solve oppression was to pass legal reforms that expanded existing rights and provided more pathways for victims of discrimination to receive remedy. So, as you can see, the anti-lynching laws were passed just this year. 2022. We have to combat racist laws with anti-racist laws. Again, going back to the discrimination laws, anti-discrimination with hair. So now we've talked about what critical race theory is. I want you to think about what are some misconceptions about critical race theory. What have you heard? What have you seen? What have you witnessed? I've heard things like, you're teaching our kids to be racist. Let's look in the chat here. Should we send white people back to Europe? We're hearing these misconceptions about what critical race theory is, and these same misconceptions are getting amplified into the media, into board meetings. And of course, everyone loves an angry parent going viral. Everyone will pause to check that out on their phone. So, how are these misconceptions getting amplified in the media? And when you're getting this in your newsfeed, why are you getting these images? Why are you getting these misconceptions? Is it to fuel an agenda? Either way. So, these are some of the questions that we like to ask ourselves on the CRT front. What is the root cause of this information or misinformation? This is why we call CRT the boogeyman. When I learned about the boogeyman, I didn't know what it was. However, I was really scared of the boogeyman. But what if the boogeyman was just a man that likes to boogie? Who knows? So now let's think about how CRT has manifested into this scary character. So opponents fear that CRT admonishes all white people from being oppressors, while classifying all Black people as hopelessly oppressed victims. And as we've gone through the definitions of CRT and the principles of CRT, we are seeing that that is not the case. It is not at the individual level, it is at the systemic level. Many are not able to separate their individual identity as an American from the social institutions that govern us. They perceive themselves as the system. So this is where we have the individual versus system conversations. They recognize America's racist past, but still believe that we have an equitable democracy. And we're seeing the rate of expulsions, the rate of suspensions, they are not equal when it comes to our Black versus our white children. Some parents are worried about their kids learning things in school that they do not have the capacity to address. So, what are they going to learn? Is this developmentally appropriate? Being in a place where we have to shield our children from this racist past. And we'll talk about that more because when we're saying we need to shield our children from CRT, we're going to go back to our initial question: what is CRT? And simply put, there are individuals unwilling to acknowledge our country's racist history and how it impacts the present. So we're seeing that, well, why don't we just not teach it? Why don't we just not teach history? Why don't we just not teach slavery? And then racism will go away. When a lot of these principles, they have gotten passed down into generations and written into our laws.